Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Lee Morrison, who resides in the UK. Lee, welcome to Soundbreaker, and who is also the CEO of at Rights Hub. Love the name, Rights Hub. And thanks for joining us today. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, Lee, can you please just introduce yourself and a bit about what you do before we really dive into it and bring some of all the juicy, insightful news of Rights Hub and your thoughts about a lot of things in the music industry, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me first and foremost. Yeah, so I'm Lee Morrison, currently actually residing in the sunny climes of Spain in Valencia. Swapped the UK for some warmer climates recently to improve the lifestyle. As you said, Rights Up. This is the platform we're building now for the last kind of 5 or 6 years. What we're about is about giving affordable technology to music rights holders, all to give them access to be able to manage their business from one place, saving time and saving money, but incredibly full control over their rights and catalog, something that a lot of people don't have.
Amazing. Yeah, I want to apologize to our listeners and viewers of Soundbreaker. I said UK for some reason, and you did tell me you do reside in Spain before we started the interview. So I do apologize.
Yeah,
Yes,
recent
thank you for correcting me. So everybody I speak to in Soundbreaker and my other podcasts, Entrepreneurs in Tech, everything is technology. The music business. Literally, you cannot just say I'm in the music biz. No, you got to say I'm in the music tech biz. The word tech becomes like bread and butter. You cannot take it out of the equation. Like drinking coffee. You gotta have that word in tech. So tech it has always been the driving component or the driving vehicle of the music business, but now it's needed. Without it, you cannot operate. Lee, can you take us a bit, if we go back to your early starting in the music business, whether it's teenage years, what really got you started in this business? Was it influenced by your parents, mom, dad, grandpa, or something that you caught on in your early days? You were part of a band, or for love for music? Because to be in the music biz, especially in the business side of it, you gotta love the music. You gotta have that passion for it.
Yeah, it's kind of come from there. It's definitely not come from my parents, although my mom is a very good music aficionado. Now, my journey started really with going out to parties in fields and enjoying the music. I was actually a soldier from the ages of 16 to 21, which not many people actually know that about me.
Oh my God!
I
So
yeah,
this is exclusive content you're revealing today
exclusive
to us.
content to everybody that doesn't know me. Exactly, you heard
Yes.
it here first. I listen. I was into electronic music. I love the music. I love the beats. I love everything about it. Got into DJing, and at that point when I was leaving the military, all I wanted to do was work in music, and I wanted free records. So I started in the place where I believe a lot of the best people ever come from, and that's at the bottom, and that was in a warehouse, actually putting records in boxes in West London. This is for me. There's that kind of underpinning on everything that I do now and where we come from. I've kind of done every step along the journey, I believe, but starting in that warehouse, learning about vinyl and CD, and more vinyl back then, where the where the data is stored and how it's stored and why it's so important and how you find it and whatever. It underpins a lot of what we do today.
Interesting. But, a lot of the people I speak to who started really from the beginning or the bottom, they all worked in record stores or warehouses. One of them, somebody that you shared, you guys both worked at the same company. You led the UK office and he led the Canadian US office, North American office. George Tremblay from Believe. You both worked at Believe. He started also, I think, was it HMV? He started with, he was telling me the whole story. It was pretty intriguing. I love it. But this is really the essence where all the passion come from. And somebody, this is a music guy. You cannot take it away from him.
Yeah, exactly this. I mean,
Yes.
this was, I actually called some labels when I was first looking for a job, and I called the labels up and they were like, man, you need to have experience in either HMV or in a distributor. And being this kind of firmly electronic, independent kind of guy and whatever, it was like, I can't work at HMV. This isn't me. I'm underground. And so, but all the great things I think come from the bottom up. You understand it
Yes.
a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lee, what was your first job in the music industry? Where did you start it really working? Like beside working you started at the warehouse and boxes and records and shipping and all, but where I know to my knowledge, I understand that you started in the digital era also, like when you got the real jobs, you worked for Spotify and iTunes, correct?
No, 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 no. So
No.
no. So
So take us back. Yeah.
the journey starts in the warehouse for a company called Amato. Amato was owned by a guy called
Amato,
Mario.
I remember. I used to do business with Amato. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Weren't they in the UK or Italy?
they were in the UK, but Mario, he used to go and buy records and bring them back from Italy. It's how it
Amato Records.
slowly
Yes,
started. And
yes, yes, yeah.
yeah, and so I started there. Then I got into selling them around London from the back of a van, and I used to do that for a while. And then one day, a guy came into my life called Alex Branson. Alex Branson is now over at Beatport, and he's doing some really good stuff on the M&A and sort of services side there. And he came in one day and he's like, "Hey," he came into the office. "There's this new thing, and it's called digital. There's this new service coming. It's going to be called iTunes, coming from Apple, and yada yada yada. And we're going to do this licensing work for AIM." And I was like, "Whoa!" I was putting records in mailers at the time, and I was like posting them out to DJs and everything else. And he was like, "We're going to do it." And I'm like, "Well, you do that, and I'll do it." Anyway, the story goes that I ended up doing this, and very fortunately, that's where my journey in the digital side of the business started. We actually formed one of the first digital distribution companies in the UK. We were running things in spreadsheets and FileZilla and reporting and taking lines of data. And my wife remembers these days fondly of copying and pasting all of the sales reports. And so it was really, really right at the beginning. I suppose, a career path is a career path, but it's done physical, it's done digital. We've overseen everything from the download world, the electronic DJ stores that all came together, the Track It Downs and the Express Beats, and obviously Beatport and DJ Download,
Yes,
and then through the streaming world, hitting streaming becoming what it was. We always talk about the evolution of how things happen. You know,
yes,
it's constantly happening. I was there at the beginning of YouTube, there at the beginning of Spotify. We can talk about that later on, and the changing in the data sets, and it's constantly evolving, right? And this is, your career. I don't know when it really begins because every day it's changing.
yes, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. I mean, now the digital world is massive, but I feel it's not enough anymore, and it's not bringing what it used to be. There's a lot of changes going on, but I guess that's part of the evolution. You know, in any business, and there's an era that we come into a new era, and that's part of it. Lee, you also, let's talk about you. You were involved with the Ministry of Sound, where the number one label back in the days when it come to dance music and house and club and all of the electronic music. Now they call it, they don't use these terms. There are a lot of people, they use the term EDM. But yes, Ministry was everybody always waited for the Ministry of Sound releases and Ministry of Sound parties back in the day. So you went through that era. Let's talk about that era for a second. And also Skint Records. Am I right?
Yeah, I worked at
Yes.
Skink in the end. So I mean, listen, when I have a kind of ethos in work, and the work is that you always try and work with the best people at the time.
Yes.
The best people in a genre. And if you tap into the best people in a genre, the other people kind of follow. And Ministry being what it is, I was going into Ministry dancing and clubbing and raving. That's a completely different story. And then when I
Hmm.
was at Fuga, one of the biggest clients that I wanted to land was Ministry. And going
Well,
into
hold on.
the
You worked at Fuga where in Netherlands or when they first started?
Yeah, so I was at Fuga when it was just a digital delivery platform. So the
Yes,
rival back then.
independently owned. It was independently owned yet.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
founded, well, independently owned with some with some
Yes.
shareholders, obviously. But yeah,
Yes.
it was
Correct.
a guy called Martin Cho that had founded it, and I went to work in there with. It was actually the sister of the now chief marketing officer at Downtown, Dave Dreesen, his sister Rebecca, that employed me. This is a long time ago, and yeah, so it was at that point where I'm out signing new business and trying to grow Fuga as a delivery brand when you had a company called Consolidated Independent that was invested in by beggars and it had lots of big clients. So I always seem to be in a position where I'm playing catch up, but I seem to do it quite well. So yeah, so Ministry was one of my big targets. I I managed to land the deal. You know, I'm actually dealing with the guy that I did the deal with back then, now on something else. And it's a great brand to work with. They were always really, you know, before they were acquired, they were forward thinking. They were doing a lot of good stuff. The
Oh
compilation,
yeah.
you know, it's huge, right? It's a worldwide massive brand. So I try to land these deals in order to bring other stuff in, basically.
Hmm. And how did this whole circle landed you running the UK office for Believe Digital, one of
Uh,
the top indie aggregators in the world?
yeah. So again, I was at Fuga and Skin at the same time. The skint journey was a really interesting one because at the time I didn't realize that they were looking at maybe the exit, you know, and they were finally acquired by BMG.
Hmm.
We did a lot of work there and sorting those catalogs out and getting them ready and getting them, you know, making sure that everything was right and it was clear, the contracts were right, everything was online, missing, you know, any recordings that were missing and blah 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 blah. So it was a very big job of getting together all of that content. But at the time, I was also doing the Fuga thing, so I did the two at the same time. Um, it just came along that one day through I was at PopCon in Germany, and through no fault of anybody's, but just things weren't quite going in the direction of Fuga that I wanted them to go in, and yeah, to believe them basically came to me and said, "Hey, how you doing? We were two different businesses, you know, we kind of knew each other. You know, you want to come and have a look at what we're doing?" And they had this little stand and this little stall in Germany, and I went in and I looked at their technology and I was like, "Whoa, this is brilliant!" And I looked at backstage their tech, and I was like, "You know what? Yeah, this is great. I really like this." But we were two different businesses, one direct delivery, one aggregation. So anyway, I went back to the UK, and after going back to the UK, I was then called and said, "Hey, do you want to come and have a little meeting? We're looking to maybe expand out what we're doing." And so I went out to have this meeting. He explained some of the plans to me, and I took it on. It was again coming in a crowded marketplace, very crowded marketplace. Back then, you had a lot of distribution companies already, you know, sort of really well formed in the UK. And then they just had this plan to come in, but they were just like an unknown French brand. So I think I had three people when I started there, zero turnover, sort of ongoing. And yeah, it was a very successful 6 year tenure and grew us from
Wow,
nothing.
10 years.
6 years,
Whew.
six
Oh,
years
6 years.
I was in there.
Still
Yeah.
it's a long time. So you're pretty much basically, you really went through so many avenues and so many steps that you gained so much knowledge and experience that prepped you, that said, you know what, I'm ready to go on my own. I know what the industry is missing. I know what the flaws. Tell us how this whole thing transitions, and what did you really, what did you gather from all of this experience that you went through in the music business that prepped you and inspired you to start your own? How did the whole idea came?
Yeah, again, so you have to wonder how honest you should be on these things, but I do like to
Oh,
be honest.
just be yourself. Be yourself. Please. That's what
Yeah.
Soundbreak is about. You know, we're all in the music business, so we're pretty much familiar.
Yeah. I mean, the days that Believe at the beginning, you know, we were running it as more of a record company vibe, kind of growing out in an accelerated way. We were really fortunate. We had this amazing technology. We were being paid the money every month to pay the staff and to ramp them up. And obviously there was pressures, but it was a very different pressure and it was a good pressure. And, you know, building it in that way, it was almost quite loose. It's not like it is now. It's a very corporate sort of company and whatever else. Along that journey, I personally learned a lot about me, my growth, my, you know, how you deal with people, how you grow these things out. But there was one thing that was really apparent, and that is nobody looks after their rights. Absolutely nobody has their rights in their data. They're all giving it to their distributor or to their publisher or whatever else. And nobody is actually looking after their catalogs. So I'm learning this, you know, we're growing the business, we're seeing what works and what doesn't work and what slows you down and everything else, and how people are acting in the industry and what they're doing, what their pain points are and everything else. And actually, I didn't think of any of that when I started the business at all. I came out of Believe, and it wasn't a very happy ending at all. It was,
Ooh.
it's actually still to this day kind of raw, which is really bizarre after kind of 8 years. It wasn't a happy ending for me. It was something that I wouldn't ever want anybody to go through again. It really it wasn't nice at all. But at this point, I was kind of really quite angry. I was, I I was a very angry guy at the time. And when I look back and I see this place I was, and I was pretty annoyed about the way it happened. So I actually set about building Rights Hub as a multi-rights platform to go and start to challenge both Believe and Cobalt, who were technically brilliant at the time on the publishing side and what was going on. I wanted to house everything in one place and link everything together, and I could see kind of how things were going and everything else. So this is actually how Rights Hub was spawned, and then after about 3 months, we started building all of this stuff out, and it was great, and it was all good, and the infrastructure is brilliant, and yada yada. But I just suddenly realized one day, you know what? This isn't for me, for one, and two, I don't have pockets deep enough. But three, let's look at these problems. Let's think about. Let's think, Lee. Stop for once in your life. Really stop and think about what the issues are and what you need to do. And it's at that point when I realized what I needed to be building, and these, companies that are building huge, you said 1 point however many billion earlier, I think, when we were chatting personally, and
Yes.
he floated for over 2 billion and stuff like that. They're building these companies based on other people's rights and other people's repertoire, you know. So I got to the point where, you know what? Imagine if we can just give people tools to be able to manage those catalogs and repertoires properly, they could probably start earning a bit more money themselves and give themselves longevity and everything else. And that's where rights have spawned from. It's about giving people control and the power to be able to manage their businesses seamlessly and efficiently in a way that doesn't rely on other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, the journey, the learning, the experience. I wouldn't be doing this now if it wasn't for Belief or for Fuga or for Skin or for starting in that warehouse. So I put every bit of learning now into the platform.
Really interesting. So, what was the vision behind it, and the goal and hope to change and accomplish with Rights Hub?
Yeah, the vision is always just to give the independent community access to technology that is otherwise unaffordable. You can't go out and build what we've built as an indie, sort of label unless you are beggars, and even beggars, they have problems with stuff they build. You're constantly having to keep on top and change and update. And as we know, evolution, the way that everything's changing, the goal is to give people these technology and these solutions at an affordable price that isn't going to cost them. And that we work as I'm a commercial venture, obviously, right? It's a commercial venture, but I have a very romantic vision that the independent community is this community that we all stick together on, but we're competitors in a nice kind of way. But I'm hoping that the long-term view is that it becomes the adopted platform for all of the indies to be able to manage their businesses from and to continue to grow the amazing market shares that are going up and up and up. There's a reason that the acquisition is going in the way that it is, and that's because the indies are again becoming very, very, very powerful. And if our
Hmm.
technology can help with that, then great.
I mean, obviously, Rights Hub was designed because you saw a gap in the market, you saw a flaw, and you said, "Hey, there's a problem, and I have a solution for that problem." What's some of the main issues or problems that, throughout your experience and your knowledge and working for some of the biggest companies out there in the world in the music industry, that you see still struggling with the music business? What other things that maybe being shoved under the rug, nobody paying attention to? What do you think some of the issues that need to be really industry as a whole need to get together and say, we need to find a solution for this. We need to fix this because this we cannot. It's going to only make it harder and more difficult for us, and more challenging to to take on new way of doing business in the future if we don't fix this.
Yeah, I think the biggest it's like a relationship, right? The biggest thing is always communication, and I feel there's a real lack of communication across different rights holders. This industry is fraught with people trying to protect what they see as their data and their catalogs and everything else, when actually it's not. It belongs to the rights holders, and the business is only as good with anything. It's only as good as what you put in, you get out. So for me, the biggest issue, And one of the real hurdles that we have to get over is the sharing of data across multiple, especially on the master and publishing side, making sure that if we implement um, new fields and new data that is required for distribution, for example, at master level, that people can't just lie and put stuff in and pretend that they know this stuff and whatever else, because it doesn't help either party in the long term or whatever. So, yeah, I think the biggest issue for me is this, data sharing and communication that we all need to just be a little bit freer on, I believe.
Data sharing. And how would that data sharing would you imagine it to be? You know.
Yeah, well, that's $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, there's
I mean, I know the health industry also struggling with that because it's all about data and information, and doctors need to have access to new patients, but every new patient have a history. How can we access all of that? Because I did speak to somebody on my other podcast about it, and you mentioned that, and it dawned to me, it brought that to my head right away. Data sharing, it's very, very important, especially for the music business, because it's all about metadata. You know.
Yeah, it's a lovely M word. I love the M word. It's great. I mean, listen, it's always the problem is you get data that's changing, right? And you get people
Yeah.
that don't want to share it and everything else. We've tried, and again, without being too controversial, I find that the biggest companies that can make the biggest difference have the biggest
Hmm.
amount to lose, and so they're probably not that invested in wanting to be able to make the changes. And quite honestly, I always find that with any evolution in tech and even like the digital space itself, this came from electronic music, right? Because we were the adopters of this digital format way
Yeah.
before anybody else in the market. And I just feel like this sharing will come from the bottom up rather than the top down and people telling us how to do it. I think there will be, obviously we've got this new Web3 sort of scenario coming. We've got, there's people been talking about blockchain and everything else for a long, long time now, a long time. We used to go to Meedem and hear Benji Rogers banging on about blockchain, 10 years ago plus, and we're still in a position where it's not coming to fruit. The biggest thing has to be that people start sharing this data in a common cause to make sure that people get paid properly. How that will be, MLC obviously leading a great charge in that. They are doing a great job in opening up the databases that they've got for people to be able to tap into and API into and everything else. If I knew the answer right now, maybe I wouldn't be sat in Valencia. Maybe I'd be sat on my boat. But we keep looking.
What excites you most these days about the acceleration that you're witnessing in the music business, especially in the tech, with AI being a leading part of a lot of the new entrepreneurs taking on, changing the landscape of the music business? What excites you and what scares you?
I don't think I'm scared of that much on what's going on. It's just an
Or
evolution.
what worries you? Let's say worries you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about the worrying thing is the right people not getting paid. This is the biggest thing for me. The biggest worry is, I have friends that are non-featured artists that end up not getting credited because they don't know where that piece of music that they performed on, where it's ended up. There's no need for this in this day and age. There's now technology for this, although it's fractures. The biggest thing for me is that there won't be a creative industry because people can't afford to be in the industry if they're not getting paid. So if people don't get paid properly, then AI will take over, and that music creation will be something, that won't be personal. It won't have the soul. The live scene will start going and everything else. But I can't ever see that happening. Too many people are so far invested. The evolution of how people can communicate with fan bases, some of these new Web3
Yes.
technologies. I mentioned, we're integrated with a company called Pixelinks that are doing some great stuff and looking at how you target fans and you speak to fans and communicate with them. I actually believe we're in one of the most exciting times ever for the consumption of music, and we're going to be able to offer so many different products and formats and whatever. It's about tailoring it for the right fan base. Whether this is tapes, through to, Web3, through to however you consume the music. I think it's a really exciting time. so long as the infrastructure is right and so long as the right people are credited so they get paid.
Do you think that the future of consuming music, consuming music, especially for our younger generation, is adaptive music?
Adapted music, what do you mean by that?
Adaptive, it changes as, it started in the video gaming industry.
Ah,
So within a game or within 3 minutes, you would probably go through 20 songs based on the emotion and the heights and the scenario and all of these things together, obviously.
yeah, I think listen, the gaming world, the gaming world, we're doing some stuff with the what I think is an absolutely fantastic product, which can personalize your gaming experience with the music that's inside it. But instead of it being like production music and everything else, it can be your artist, your fan, whatever you want with inside the game. And this is phenomenal, right? I mean, of course, children's or younger people's attention spans are shorter. So that type of, the God, my son listens to music for like 2 minutes at best, and he's flicking through stuff and everything else. So the model's changing absolutely, and this is something. But I think we're already onto this. I think people are making music that is shorter on the back of, on the back of this, and we react to
Yeah.
what comes in the industry, right?
Yes. Um, what's next for Lee, and what's next for Rights Up?
For me, who knows? I'm about to go on. For me personally, I'm going to sell my house. The children have all left, and we're going to go and live a traveler lifestyle in a big, massive RV. And I'm going to do
Mhm.
that for a while and travel around Spain. So that's me. You can work from anywhere. The beautiful thing of this day and age is you can work from anywhere. I mean,
Correct.
for Rights Hub, we're so far in the middle of so many different things, especially around the matching of master and publishing and getting in ISRC, ISWC matching, where we're going, what we're building out, the tools we're building. But the biggest thing is adoption, right? Getting people to change their mind on and getting them out of the old ways that they do stuff. So,
Uh,
just keeping on going, building the stuff, making the partnerships, fighting the fight, and absolutely loving fixing problems. And there is so many.
what's something that you achieved in the music tech side that you're extremely proud of?
In the music tech side, I mean, yeah, building Rights Hub in particular. I mean, listen, I started this platform in February. We launched in February 2020, and we all know what happens at the end of February
Oof.
2020, right? So COVID hit. There was absolutely, it was a shocking time, and so we spent 2 years of continuing. No funding, no money, no help from the British government, no nothing. So the testament that we're still here and we're working with. I mean, we work with some amazing clients. We have Armada
Mhm.
Records, we have Defected, we have Unified Records. We work with big religious labels. The fact they put their trust in us, to me, right now, as my own business, I actually find this, the most satisfying thing I've ever done.
Interesting. Anything that you working on, you're going to release on Rights Hub in the next, let's say, in the first quarter of 2025 or in the fourth quarter of 24?
Yeah, lots of integrations, So I think I said earlier, this chorus protocol thing that Pixie Links are doing is very interesting for us. That we're integrating with. We're integrating with lots of other solutions. We don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I'm about putting them in. We've got other solutions of our own, which are forthcoming. We've got a thing called Rights Drop, which I'm really excited about, and it's just basically a way to gather the data and the information in a much easier way, which is cool.
Hmm.
And then we got something else which, without overselling it, maybe we check back in 12 months. This new project that we have going on, which is
Absolutely.
which I think will be a game changer. And if we have this one project and it comes towards the end of next year, watch this space as something that could revolutionize and make sure that everybody is getting paid properly, especially around the performance area.
Lee, as an entrepreneur yourself, and you led that path for a long time, and being in the music business, what advice you have for some of the new entrepreneurs who's carving their path into the music business. Some of them say, hey, I want to start my own thing. Some of them say, hey, I just want to go through the experiences and work for different companies. What advice you would have for them?
I mean, firstly, just know what your product is. Go out there, be very
Mm-hmm.
clear that the product has a market value. You know, be very prepared for a bumpy ride, because it is, nothing's ever easy. And I think the biggest thing that I'm finding actually is just don't take it personally, because a lot of people will besmirch you and say, "No, that's not good," blah, blah, blah. Especially raising money is a hard game. We never raised any money. If you're going on that path, it can be a personal sort of it can be very tough to do that. So
Yes.
just be prepared for it.
Yes.
It's just don't take that personally.
It's funny you said that. I interviewed Scott Cohen, who was the founder with the Orchard, who was, ended up being bought out by
So
Sony. And he said to me, I said, were you able to raise any money back in the day when you started, when you founded, you and your partner, Richard, were you able to raise? Is like, Bob, I wasn't savvy enough to convince people to give me money.
yeah,
And literally bootstraps, like, Bob, I lost my home. Iris was after me. I was sleeping in the office, and I thought, and then boom, iTunes came in 3 years later, and that was 75% of the music that was on iTunes. It came from the Orchard.
yeah.
And yes, so pretty much basically, bootstrapping it sometime is not just the only way. Sometimes it is the best way, because you it teaches you resilience, and it teaches you, it's like, do I really believe in what I'm doing? Do I really passionate enough? There's no option B. There's only one option and one road A. I don't care how rough and how bumpy the ride is, I'm gonna make it happen. So great
And,
advice.
and he did,
Yes.
fairly well, Scott.
Oh,
Right, and
extremely
he's
amazing.
not having no
Amazing.
problem. He's not having no problem raising any money anymore.
Not
So
anymore, my friend. Not anymore. Not anymore.
yeah,
Absolutely. He's great. Great guy. Had him on the show. Amazing. Great guy to have a conversation with. Really so much
very, very,
insights and knowledge.
very intelligent guy. That
Very. Yeah.
on the panels he speaks on, he makes a hell of a lot of sense. But this is what happens when you've been doing this as long as what Scott has. He gets it. He understands it. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so,
Anything before we say goodbye to this amazing conversation we're having together? I love such interviews and conversation. It becomes so relaxed and interesting. Brings in the past. You brought a motto to me that I forgot all about it. I had my first record label was Wacker Records back in the day, and Amato, I used to work with him. That was back in the day. Like, my God, he brought a lot of memories.
yeah.
So
Well, hey, this is all we get, right? When we get older, this is what we've got. We've got the memories in all these.
well, that's why we're in the music business. Keep staying young, because the music give us that drug called, stay young.
Yeah, exactly that.
Great.
No, nothing
Anything
else
you want to
to do.
promote? Anything you want to promote and mention to our listeners and viewers on Soundbreaker that everybody know to look for?
No, man,
Mention.
just the platform. Just get on, just have a look, see what we're
That's it.
about. And just, as I say, we're all in this together. Just if you can do one thing, at least just pick up the phone and kind of, everybody's too busy, right? So,
Yes.
we're just all about that and just promoting a bit of world peace, really. That sounds fucking really shit and whatever, but in this day and age, just everybody, give each other a hug every now and again. I think that's
Yes.
probably one thing that we like to do. So
Yes. And follow the music and technology, because music and technology, they speak a universal language and always help advance humanity and evolve forward and make everybody happy. Being happy, music makes everybody happy. Well, you heard it first. A big advocate in the music business, Lee Morrison, built a platform, Rights Hub, to really help advanced artists and all that. Rights Hub, he wants everybody to get paid. So obviously he's championing independent artists. He really all about the artists, empowering artists. Lee, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today on Soundbreaker. This concludes today's episode. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for more exciting and interesting episodes of Soundbreaker. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.